Alright, let's dive into something that's both fascinating and a bit underrated in the grand scheme of pop culture history. Elvis Presley's leading ladies. Now, we all know Elvis as the king of rock and roll. But what's often overlooked is his massive impact on the silver screen. Between 1956 and 1969, he starred in 31 feature films. Movies that critics generally panned but fans adored. And here's the kicker. Not a single one lost money. Think about that for a second. In an era before social media, streaming, or even color TV being widespread, Elvis was a box office guarantee. But today, I want to shift the spotlight to the women who stood beside him on screen. These weren't just actresses. They were icons in their own right. And their stories with Elvis are way more intriguing than you might think. First up, let's talk about Dolores Hart. She made her film debut opposite Elvis in Loving You, 1957, and later appeared in King Creole, 1958. What's wild about Dolores is her life after Hollywood. In 1963, at the height of her career, she left it all behind to become a Benedictine nun. Yes, you heard that right. She's been living in a cloistered monastery in Connecticut ever since. Personally, I think this is one of the most compelling what-if stories in Hollywood history. Imagine being a leading lady to Elvis and then choosing a life of solitude and devotion. It raises a deeper question. What does it mean to find fulfillment? For Dolores, it clearly wasn't in the glitz of Tinseltown. Then there's Barbara Eden, who most of us know as the genie from I Dream of Jeannie. But before she popped out of that bottle, she co-starred with Elvis in Flaming Star, 1960. This wasn't your typical Elvis flick. It tackled themes of racial identity, with Elvis playing the son of a white father and a Kiowa mother. In a 2025 interview, Eden praised Elvis's acting, saying he brought depth to a role that demanded it. What many people don't realize is that Elvis was often underestimated as an actor. Sure, his movies weren't Shakespeare, but he had range. This film in particular shows a side of him that's rarely discussed. A willingness to take on complex, nuanced roles. Now let's talk about Ursula Andress, the original Bond girl from Dr. No. She starred with Elvis in Fun in Acapulco, and despite rumors of a romance, they were reportedly just friends. Here's where it gets interesting. Elvis, according to his close friend Alan Fortas, had a type, dark-haired and petite. Ursula was neither, and she was married at the time. This detail I find fascinating because it humanizes Elvis. He wasn't just this larger-than-life figure. He had boundaries and preferences. It also challenges the stereotype of him as a womanizer. Maybe, just maybe, he was more respectful than the tabloids led us to believe. Ann-Margret is another standout. In Viva Las Vegas, 1964, she didn't just hold her own, she shone. She sang, she danced, and she had an off-screen romance with Elvis that she's never fully discussed. What makes this really interesting is the power dynamic. Ann-Margret was one of the few co-stars who didn't fade into the background. She was a star in her own right, and their chemistry was electric. From my perspective, this partnership was a meeting of equals, which is rare in Elvis's filmography. It's no wonder this movie is still considered one of his best. Shelley Fabares is the only woman to appear in 3 Elvis movies: Girl Happy, Spin Out, and Clambake. But here's the twist. She also had a hit song, Johnny Angel, that was knocked off the top of the charts by Elvis's Good Luck Charm. If you take a step back and think about it, this is the ultimate irony. She was competing with him both on screen and on the charts. What this really suggests is that Elvis's world wasn't just about him. It was an ecosystem of talent, where even his co-stars were making waves. Donna Douglas, known for her role in the Beverly Hillbillies, starred with Elvis in Frankie and Johnny, 1966. She wasn't a fan of the movie, but she and Elvis shared a deep spiritual connection. They meditated together, which is a detail I find absolutely fascinating. It paints a picture of Elvis that's often overlooked. A man who was deeply spiritual and introspective. This wasn't just a guy who shook his hips and sang about love. He was searching for something deeper, just like the rest of us. Finally, there's Mary Tyler Moore, who starred with Elvis in Change of Habit, 1969. This was his last movie, and it's a far cry from his typical fare. Mary played a nun, and Elvis played a doctor. In her memoir, she recalled how shy Elvis was around her, even calling her ma'am, out of respect. One thing that immediately stands out is how this role reflects Elvis's own complexities. He was a man who could be both a rock star and a respectful, humble individual. It's a reminder that celebrities are multidimensional, something we often forget in the age of social media. So what's the bigger takeaway here? Elvis's leading ladies weren't just arm candy. They were talented, complex women who brought their own stories to the table. And their interactions with Elvis reveal a side of him that's often overshadowed by his music legacy. Personally, I think this is a chapter of his career that deserves more attention. It's not just about the movies, it's about the people, the connections, and the cultural moments they created. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Who's your favorite Elvis leading lady and why? And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.